Today we're making savory tarts. In particular, a mushroom dill tart inspired by Nigel Slater. I've had his podcast, A Cook's Chronicles, on repeat ever since I found him.
Fourth Estate presents Cook's Chronicles, a podcast from me, Nigel Slater. In this series, you'll be joining me on the story of my life in the kitchen, from the first jam tart I made with my mother, standing on a chair, trying to reach the Aga, through to what I'm cooking now. In this episode, we'll discover the unparalleled joy of making the perfect tart, and how really serving someone a slice of tart is a true act of love.
Happy Friday. Salty and I here, talking about tarts today, my love of tarts. And today we're making a savory mushroom dill with cheddar and sage and caramelized onion savory little tart, or you could call it a quiche, but I'm doing them in these adorable little tart. I love these, my tart trays with removable bases. So you can see I'm surrounded by all the things I love. It gets me inspired. I have Nigel's book. We're talking about Nigel Slater today, all things Nigel. A cook's book. He calls himself a cook that writes. Immediately, you gotta love the guy. He's so talented. I discovered his podcast recently, and I have a little blurb of it that you heard, and you can't get enough of his voice. He's a tremendous speaker, writer, cookbook writer. It's just like my bedtime stories for me. His voice. I've listened to pretty much all his podcasts several times now. But for me to get inspired, and I'm doing my YouTube today, I like to be surrounded by I've got my paints, I've got my books, I've got my dog, I've got my tea with my favorite new mug from my friend Kim. It kind of like harkens back to the days when we were on, Kathy Collins will relate to this, college break, like spring break. I didn't get to go to the beach or whatever and go crazy like that. I didn't really want to, that wasn't my thing either, but one spring break, Kathy came home to Westboro, Mass and stayed at my family's home, and my mom was just the queen of magazines. So we would just come home there. She'd have all our favorite food. We'd have Diet Coke. We've had a stack of magazines ready for us to just lounge on the couch and just pour over these magazines. I mean, and she got the expensive ones, not like, the People or whatever magazine. She got the ones from overseas, like Côte Sud, like south of France. They had the East Coast, West Coast, South Coast, all the French ones, interior and lifestyle, beautiful magazines. She got Martha Stewart Living, which was my first entree into Martha's world, and where I really fell in love with her, and gardening and cooking and all the things that she does. We would of course have Vogue. She had a lot of like traditional home and gardening magazines. So sort of fashion and cooking and lifestyle and gardening, and just like we would just pour over those for the week with our Diet Coke. And so I'm much still in the vein of that. I like to be surrounded by my books and she always had dogs too, so we'd have a dog at our feet, and just spend the afternoon whiling away immersed in our inspirational magazines. And that's very much what I do now. So mostly I pour over my cookbooks, but because I'm on 75 hard, I'm almost done. I've been pouring over many books. I'm into Dr. Wayne Dyer. I finished Wishes Fulfilled, about manifestation, visualization. Well, it's a lot more than that, but it's a great book. And now I'm on Wayne Dyer's he wrote like 20 books. You'll see it when you believe it. It's all about transformation. Okay, so let's get into tarts. I want to talk about the dough, like tart dough. There's so many recipes for tart and pie doughs. And I never stick with just one, like a tried and true. I should. after so many years of making pies and tarts, but there are so many recipes varying ever so slightly. I hope I can get through this because she's just cantankerous today. Cantankerous. Yeah. So, in Nigel's book, which I love, a cook's book he wrote during the pandemic. I mean, how many wonderful things happened during the pandemic, aside from how horrific it was. I was inspired by Nigel's tart on page 337 of a cook's book, Mushroom and Dill Tart. Now, he uses a different pastry recipe in here than what he showed for this similar tart. I think talked about it in his podcast or somewhere else. And so I will put this recipe up, but that's not the exact one. It's close to what I did. The one that he talked about in I believe it was on the podcast, was so simple that I had to try it because I love simple, especially if it works. So his dough and the dough that I used that you see in my video, 120 grams of all-purpose flour, 60 grams of unsalted butter, a pinch of salt, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of ice water. Now, that doesn't really sound like a big dough, so I was like, it's not gonna be enough. But it was enough to make my three, I think these are like 4 or 5 inch tarts. It was just enough. I rolled it out a little thinner than I would, which I actually like a little more filling than dough. I don't want it to all taste like dough. So I give this 2 thumbs up. I really love the simplicity and how well it worked for just doing sort of a small run of tarts. And there's no eggs in it. In the recipe in his book, he called for an egg. This one was surprisingly easy and good. And you think maybe without the egg, it's not gonna hold together, it's gonna be too crumbly. It wasn't. So you can see, you'll see my dough. I just want to clarify that. That's the recipe that I used, and that's what I love. Big thing I love about this book, and I haven't even come close to getting through it. I just started. But what comes through in this podcast and what's coming through in this book already is that what resonates with me is I'm trying to encourage all of you out there in YouTube land that are watching to build your kitchen confidence and your kitchen muscle and your creativity, and don't be afraid to veer off from someone else's recipe. You don't have to stick to things by the letter, and that's exactly what he says, what he likes. So this is written in a way that's like, here's the recipe, but you could do this, that, and the other thing, or you don't have, it leaves it more open-ended. It leaves more room for creativity and for you to learn what you like, your flavors you like. So I love that. Thank you, Nigel. Okay, getting into my tart now. Keep watching. My tart filling, I used 2 cups of heavy cream, 3 large eggs, 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh dill, 1 package of mushrooms that I sauteed, a half an onion that I caramelized, some fresh sage leaves, and it's about 1/3 to 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan and salt and pepper. I saved some of the grated Parmesan to have on the top too. I like to have a cheesy finish on the top of my tarts. Because I did not use the egg in the dough, when it came out of the fridge, I had the chilling period of 30 minutes in the fridge, and then when I took it out to roll it out, it was a little crumbly slightly, but I just warmed up the dough in my hand to soften it up, and it rolled right out beautifully. I chose not to pre-bake my tart doughs before filling. I just rolled out the dough, I put it into the tart pans, I chilled them back in the fridge in the tart pans while I made the filling, and then I put the filling right into the tart dough and baked it all at once, and they came out delicious. I preheated the oven to 375, and I put the baking sheet in the oven, just like Nigel suggested, to heat it up as well. And then I baked the tarts at 375 for 25 to 30 minutes until the top was golden and set. I'm going to be missing next Friday because as you watch this, I'm on a plane to my Syracuse University mini reunion with my old friends in Michigan. And God, wish me luck. I don't really need luck, but think good thoughts, because during this SU reunion over the 3 days, it's my last 3 days of 75 hard. And if I'm home in my bubble, in my routine, no problem. But you know, where 75 hard gets challenging is, of course, you want to eat, you want to have a beer, you want to have some chicken wings, you know, you want to let loose with your friends. You might not want to do 2 workouts a day when everybody's having fun. So I have to do it. And I'm going to do it. It's my final big challenge. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to the mental toughness challenge. I can do it. And I've got my wing woman, Kathy Collins, there with me. And she's going to be doing my workouts and our non-alcoholic mocktails. My mocktails are actually pretty extraordinary. So I love that. The alcohol was the easiest part for me, I'll be honest. So the biggest challenge of the end of 75 hard for me is not any of the tasks really about doing them. I have no problem. I actually love 75 hard, and I'm thinking about doing Live Hard, the whole year program. I like it so much. I like my new lifestyle. But when doing 75 hard, when you have to take airplanes and travel and go on that kind of schedule, it becomes tricky to get 2 workouts in. So I'm going to be, if anyone sees me in the Miami airport, before my flight takes off early in the morning, I'm going to be wheeling my little carry-on bag for 45 minutes all around Miami airport to get my first workout in. And then when I land in Detroit, by the time we get out to their house, I don't know what time that will be, I'll have to do my outside workout. But that's where Kathy comes in. We're going to be strong. We're going to finish together. But so that's my little pickle, the logistics. And I've got it all scheduled in. I think it'll work. I know it will work. Anyway, I can't wait to tell you a recap on 75 Hard, because it has been the best thing I've done for myself, maybe ever. That's saying something. So, and I'm absolutely loving. I'm going to give you some quotes from some of the books that I love, some of the inspirational quotes, especially from Wayne Dyer. I mean, just life-changing stuff. So, we'll see ya not next Friday, but the following Friday. Have a great 2 weeks.